This film spent 16 years in development, burned through 7 different directors and 40 script drafts, and at one point had an entire set in Australia bulldozed after the studio went bankrupt. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how one man's stubborn obsession finally dragged it across the finish line. Think about the first time you watched Arnold Schwarzenegger rip that tracking device out of his own nose. You probably had no idea you were watching a project that had been stuck in Hollywood purgatory since the mid-1970s. Passed between studios and directors like a cursed object nobody could quite finish. If you remember exactly where you were the first time those eyes started bulging out on Mars, this channel was built for you. Subscribe before we start. Let's go. Number 10. Arnold wanted the rug pulled out from under a strong man, not a dweeb. Schwarzenegger had secured the rights long before production ever began and aggressively pursued the lead role himself, feeling it was more interesting to see a physically powerful character have the rug pulled from under his reality than the dweeb originally envisioned in the source material. Think about your own kids growing up, imagining anyone else in that role. Because the entire concept only worked, in Arnold's own mind, if the strongest man on screen was the one whose entire reality turned out to be a lie. Number 9. 7 directors, 40 drafts, and Patrick Swayze almost got there first. After nearly 16 years in development, the project had already burned through 7 different directors and 40 script drafts before Schwarzenegger ever set foot on a set. At one point, Patrick Swayze was actually cast in the lead role for a softer, more Spielbergian version that was already under construction in Australia. Picture an entirely different version of this film, gentler, more sentimental, starring the man from Dirty Dancing instead of the Terminator, almost happening years before Arnold ever got his shot. Stay with us. Because that earlier version didn't just fail quietly. It collapsed in the most dramatic way possible. And what happened next is how Arnold finally got his opening. Keep going. Number 8. An entire set in Australia was bulldozed after bankruptcy. When the studio behind that earlier version filed for bankruptcy in 1988, roughly 80 crew members were fired, and the partially built sets had to be physically destroyed after the production had already accrued $8 million in costs. Think about your own father reading that kind of business collapse in a newspaper, having no idea an entire Hollywood set on the other side of the world was being torn down at the exact same moment. Number 7. He bought the right, Tushinis, for $3 million, then demanded $11 million to star. Schwarzenegger persuaded Carolco to buy the rights for a comparatively cheap $3 million and negotiated an extraordinary $10 to $11 million salary plus 15% of the profits, along with veto power over the producer, director, screenplay, co-stars, and promotion. Picture the audacity of that negotiation. Buying a project for $3 million, then turning around and demanding nearly 4 times that amount simply to star in it, with full creative control thrown in on top. Number 6. He recruited the director of a film that once rejected him. Schwarzenegger personally recruited Paul Verhoeven to direct, having been impressed by his work on RoboCop, a film where Schwarzenegger himself had originally been considered for the title role but was deemed too bulky to fit inside the suit. Think about that strange symmetry, rejected from one of Verhoeven's films for being physically too large, then personally hand-picking that exact same director for his own next project years later. Before we keep going, quick question. How old were you the first time you watched this film? And which special effect actually shocked you most? Drop both answers in the comments. We want to know. Number 5. He asked Sharon Stone to reveal more. She said, no. He got his revenge later. During a love scene, Verhoeven asked Sharon Stone to reveal more than she was comfortable with, and she declined. He later joked in a DVD commentary that he got his revenge on her in their very next collaboration together, Basic Instinct. Picture your own reaction learning that the most famous scene of Stone's entire career in their next film together was something the director himself openly called payback for an earlier disagreement. Number 4. Arnold spent an hour on the phone, comforting a co-star's sick sister. During production, Michael Ironside's sister was battling cancer. Schwarzenegger noticed Ironside repeatedly stepping away between takes to use the phone, asked what was wrong, and then invited him into his trailer, where the two spent over an hour on a three-way call offering encouragement and advice to his sister. Think about your own image of Schwarzenegger as simply an action star, completely unaware that off-camera, between takes on this exact film, he was spending his lunch break trying to comfort a stranger he'd never met. Number 3. He wanted creative kills because he was tired of just shooting people. Schwarzenegger had specifically wanted more creative methods to dispatch his enemies in this film, having been criticized for over-relying on guns in movies like Commando. Picture your own memory of those elaborate kills throughout the film, the drill bit, the escalator, the countless inventive deaths, all stemming from one actor's genuine frustration with simply pointing a gun and pulling a trigger one too many times. Number 2. The eye-popping Mars sequence used an inflated face model, not a computer. It was one of the last major Hollywood blockbusters to rely almost entirely on practical miniature effects rather than computer animation. The only CGI sequence in the entire film lasted just 42 seconds, a single shot of X-rayed skeletons passing through an airport scanner. Think about your own childhood memory of Arnold's face swelling on the surface of Mars, having no idea it was achieved with an actual air-inflated model rather than anything generated by a computer. Number 1. 2. Lawsuits followed. Nobody ever found out what happened to either one. 2 separate lawsuits, each seeking $3 million, followed the film's release. One from a prop maker who said his credit was removed after refusing to let his survival knife design be merchandised, and another from a science video company who claimed their animated planetary sequences had been used without permission. The outcomes of both lawsuits remain unknown to this day, a project that survived 16 years, 7 directors, and 40 script drafts. A set in Australia bulldozed after a studio's bankruptcy. Patrick Swayze walking away before Arnold ever got his chance an ace. A director handpicked despite once rejecting him for being too bulky. A leading lady asked for more than she wanted to give, paid back on the very next film. A co-star comforted on the phone between takes by a man the world only ever saw as a muscle-bound action hero. And in the end, after all of it, 2 lawsuits, quietly filed, quietly forgotten, with answers nobody has ever bothered to track down. That is total recall. Tell us in the comments, did you know any of this real history before today? And does it change how you'll watch this film next time? Write both answers below. We want to know. Subscribe and hit the bell. We are here every week. We will see you in the next one.